Good evening, everybody. This is Charlene Anderson, your wholesale sourcing expert, here on July 5th, 2018, with a new series of webinar, podcast, livenars, whatever we call them now. We're going to talk today about how to get stuff done, because it's the hardest part of this business, getting things done. It's the hardest part of anything, is getting done what we need to get done in an appropriate amount of time. So we're just going to jump right in, and we're going to talk about the very first thing about time. Is for us, time is money. If we don't save time, we can't save money. And especially if you have an outside job, if you have kids, you have parents you have to take care of, whatever it may be, your time is valuable. It costs money. And if you think of it, every time you use an hour for something, you're never going to get it back. So you have to figure out how to make that hour as valuable as you can. So we're going to jump right in. The first thing we're going to talk about is setting goals. And I hear that groan all the way from Minnesota and Wisconsin and Virginia and where all you guys are. But really, if you don't have a goal, you have no idea where you're going or how you're going to get there. You just kind of flounder along and let things happen and react instead of being proactive. So here's a few things about goals. They help you set a direction and a focus for not only your business, but your life. Goals have four things that set them apart from anything else you can think about. They're specific, meaning they have to have a definitive way of stating them. You can say, I want my business to get bigger, but that's not really a goal. That's kind of a wish. A goal is specific goal is more like, I want my business to net $50,000 this year. That's a specific goal. Next one, it has to be measurable. You have to be able to find a way of determining whether you have met it or not. So whether it's something to do with numbers or time or people or whatever, you have to be able to measure a goal. The third thing, it has to be attainable. So I could set a goal that I want to net $5 million with my business this year, but I don't think that's really attainable. I think that it is a pie in the sky to think that I could do that in 1 year. So that's not really a realistic goal. And all you'd be doing is setting yourself up for failure if you tried to pick a goal that was so out of reach. And a goal has to be relevant to your business or whatever you're setting it for. If you're setting a business goal, picking something that has nothing to do with your business won't help you focus and give you that direction. If it's an exercise goal, then maybe doing 100 sit-ups every day would be relevant. But saying, for my business, I'm going to do 100 sit-ups a day, not really relevant. So doesn't kind of fit our our whole goal thing. And the last thing is goals really need to be time-based. You have to have a time in order to measure the stuff that's going on that you're choosing. If you don't have a time, then you really can't measure or tell yourself if you've gotten there, because you're just floating along again. That there's no real definitive way to measure it. So you have to have all these four things together in order to have a goal, a SMART goal. I mean, you could have a goal that says anything, but it really doesn't work unless you follow these four SMART goal things. And you'll see them mentioned as different things on different people's podcasts, websites, talks, books, whatever. But they all pretty much follow the same pattern. A SMART goal is specific, it's measurable, it's attainable, it's relevant, and it has some time basis to it. So that said, how do you set a goal? Well, you need to set large goals, but you also need to break them down in manageable chunks. Because if they are just too overwhelming, you'll never figure out how to get there. So your goal to run the marathon, well, that's your large goal, but then you got to break it down as to how you're going to train for that marathon. How many miles are you going to run each week? Plan it out for the whole thing, so when the date of the marathon comes, you've met all those smaller goals leading up to it, so you get to the big goal. And it's not this one big overwhelming chunk that you can't figure out how to wrap your head around and how to get there. So be sure whatever goal you set, break them down into bite-sized pieces so you can do them. I like quarterly goals because they kind of sync with our business. We're so focused on quarters that we can't really think any other way, because our sales taxes are due quarterly in a lot of cases. If we have estimated income taxes, it's quarterly. The seasons are quarterly. So that whole 90-day chunk is really, really useful. And by reviewing your goals in that 90-day chunk, what it does is it keeps you from going down the wrong path for too long. It means that you can keep focused. And if you realize, oh man, maybe I shouldn't have, in my case, started selling in Europe, Amazon, the European markets, it just wasn't feasible for me here to do it. So I gave it 90 days and it wasn't worth it. So I was able to pull the plug before I went down a year or two's worth of wasted effort. So that's our SMART goals. Next way you can get more stuff done is you have to narrow your focus. You can't do everything. You just physically cannot do everything. So here's a distinction that I really want you to remember. What's the difference between a project versus a goal? Well, a project is something you have control over finishing. So my project for the day is to process and ship in the orders that came over the weekend. That's a project because I can tell when I'm done with it. It's pretty simple, and it's pretty much in my control whether I get it done or not. Now, whether UPS shows up or not is a whole other thing, but it is in my control of getting the processing done. Whereas a goal, you really don't have total control over a goal. You can do everything you can to assure that you are headed towards the goal, but you don't have total control. So remember that. Is what you're doing, is it a goal you're setting, or is it a project you're working on? And that distinction will really help you from getting too overwhelmed with stuff, which leads us to the next thing, which is less is more. Sometimes you can't do everything and you have to pick and choose what you do. So just keep that in the back of your head, that less is more. And here's the big one, multitasking. It was the buzzword for decades about, I'm a multitasker, I multitask. It has been proven definitively that multitaskers actually get less done than those of us who do one thing at a time. And it's because of something called context switching. That means switching your brain from one task to another. Your brain can't immediately switch from doing project A and then moving into project B and then back to project A. There's time loss as your brain kind of cycles through and say, okay, here's where I was on this thing. Now I got to get back to it. And then if 5 minutes later you jump to something else, your brain has to go, okay, where was I here? What do I have to do to get back to here? And if you do that jumping around all day, you'll find you lose hours. It may not seem like it because you may not be recognizing those lost times while you're trying to get back into the project, but really the context switching thing is real. So if anybody tells you they're very efficient because there's a multitasker, you can just kind of laugh at them behind their back and tell them, oh, that's great, I'm glad it works for you. But I really suggest you don't try to do it. For me, my mistakes happen when I try to do more than one thing at a time. The first thing that happens is I screw something up, almost 100%, because my brain doesn't want to switch. We're just not wired that way. So the focus that I want you to narrow to is what are you doing right at the moment to help you reach the goals that you set? And in this slide, I said for your business, but it could be for your personal life, for your family, for your health, whatever. But what can you do that will actually help you get towards that goal? And then the last one, remember that small successes will motivate you. You know, getting one thing done is a huge motivator for getting more done. It's like that creating a new listing thing. It seems so horrible and just thankless and awful. But if you get one done, you'll find immediately it's easier to get the second one done. Like at the same time, you'll just move on to the second one. It's funny how it does that little feeling of accomplishment and that success really helps you move into getting more done, because you have that kind of bit of motivation, the kick in the rear that comes from doing something. So here is one that is the biggest question that was asked in the group, is how do I prioritize what I have to do? And those of you with families, especially with young children, this is probably the most difficult thing you will face. And I see Sarah's in the chat, and Sarah has young children. She has another one on the way. And I can't imagine trying to juggle the priorities of a small family or young family and trying to grow a business. So, so we're going to talk a little bit. This is, I think Sarah asked this, urgent versus important. They aren't the same thing. Just as off the top of my head, urgent may be, you know, the smoke alarm's going off in the house and you have to find out what's wrong. Okay, that's urgent. You can't just sit around and wait till you feel like doing it. Important, it may end up not being important because it was just a false alarm, but important may be making sure you have batteries in all your smoke alarms. So it may not be the most urgent thing you have, but it's something important that you have to do. And everything in your life has these things, these urgent versus important. And it's kind of your job to distinguish how they fit in and how you can pick what is which. You know, the young child who's falling down the stairs, that's urgent and important. So that's like the number one thing. But a teenager who says, "Mom, get me a glass of water," while they're sitting on the sofa playing video games, that's neither urgent nor important, because they can probably get the glass of water for themselves. So there is a cool little thing called the Eisenhower matrix. And it was developed by President Dwight Eisenhower, who was really, really well known in the time management community for getting massive amounts of stuff done. Just incredible amounts. And he developed this matrix that's now used in a lot of time management seminars. And it's also called the urgent important matrix too, but I learned it as the Eisenhower matrix. And what it does is, if you actually draw it out on a piece of paper, it lets you sort what you have to do off that to-do list into these boxes. So we'll show you a little video in a second about how it actually works. But I've got some links in here, and you guys will be able to access the webinar when it's over. The recording will come up. These websites, especially the Eisenhower.me, details a lot of how to use the matrix, where it works best and things like that. And it's a free website. They also have downloadables. So if you want to print out a bunch of the matrices, I guess that would be matrices on your paper, and and have them ready to go and start plugging things in. You can do that. And they also have an app for smartphones. There are a lot of them out there. I just chose this one because this site has some really simple ways helping you determine what's urgent and what's important and what isn't. So we're going to move into a little video if all this technology works.
Have you recently had the feeling there is more to do than you can achieve in a day, a week, or even a month? A good time management strategy solves this problem and can dramatically reduce stress and increase your own productivity at the same time. The Eisenhower Matrix by former US President Eisenhower supports you in prioritizing tasks by urgency and importance and sorting out those less urgent or important tasks which you shouldn't do yourself. This results in 4 quadrants with different work strategies. We call the first quadrant the Do First sector, as its tasks are important for your life and career and need to be done today or tomorrow at the latest. You could use a timer to help you concentrate while trying to get as much of them done as possible. An example of a number 1 task could be a review of an important document for your manager. The second quadrant we call the Schedule sector, as its tasks are important but less urgent, and you should list those things that you need to put in your calendar here. An example of that could be a long-planned return to the gym. The third quadrant takes up things you could delegate, as they are less important to you than others but still pretty urgent. You should keep track of delegated tasks by email, telephone, or within a meeting to check back on their progress later. An example of a delegation could be somebody calling you and asking for an urgent favour or requesting you step into a meeting. Maybe you could delegate this responsibility by suggesting a better person for the job, or give the necessary information back to the caller and have him deal with the matter himself. The fourth and last quadrant is there to help you sort out and eliminate the things that you really shouldn't do at all. Discover and stop bad habits like surfing the internet without a reason, or other forms of procrastination like gaming too long, just to find an excuse for not being able to deal with important tasks in the first and second quadrant. And that's it. Give it a try yourself or head on over to eisenhower.me for more information. And don't forget, as Dwight Eisenhower once said, what's important is seldom urgent, and what's urgent is seldom important.
Okay, guys, you can see how that could be really, really valuable in planning your day. You know, you have a list of tasks that you have to do, and then you have to decide where it fits in this matrix. So things with deadlines like taxes. In this example, the car engine goes out. Certain emails that require an immediate answer for other things to happen, those are urgent. Then what I think is really for your business, the most important category on this, and that's the important but not urgent, because that's where long-term planning comes into play. That means, you know, you sit down and you're researching projects. That's not, or products. It's not time bound like mailing a check to the IRS or the fact that you need to get the car engine fixed. But it is hugely important to your business to find new products to sell. So really, as you look at the list here, family time, it's important, but it's not urgent because it's not deadline driven in most cases, unless you have a school recital to go to or something like that. And then it becomes scheduled and it's put in your calendar, and that time is blocked out for it. The not important line at the bottom, the urgent but not important, a lot of that we could delegate. I know it's hard for us to let go of stuff and delegate it, but you have to. You really have to be able to let go of some stuff. And here's the important one, the red one. Not urgent, not important. So you don't have to do it. You don't have to do it at all. That's stuff like watching TV. Now, I admit I have the TV on a lot because I listen to it while I'm working, but I can't stand to just sit there and watch TV. Um, Video games, a huge time suck, because if you play games, you know that in an hour goes by before you know it, and that's an hour you'll never get back. So as you work through this whole process, with the Eisenhower matrix, I'd really like to give it a try, and then work on minimizing or eliminating that bottom row of things, meaning delegate it, hand it off to someone, outsource it. A lot of the busy work on Amazon, the things like the refund requests and all of that, can be outsourced quite easily to someone who uses a real life person to submit the cases for them and all of that. I would not suggest subscribing to a service that automatically does it. You want someone who is a real life person doing something like that. But a lot of tasks can be delegated, outsourced. If you have kids, that's another place that you can outsource stuff. Because I remember as a kid, I loved doing stuff at my parents' business. It was just the most fun thing in the world. Stuff that I'm sure my parents thought was like horribly boring, like filing, you know? So I learned how to file, learned the alphabet really well doing that. I learned how to make boxes. You know, I learned how to weigh nuts and bolts. So all that kind of stuff is really, it's fun for kids because they feel really grown up doing it. So if you have tasks that are suitable to the age group of your kids, let them help you, you know, because they will learn lots and lots in the way of work ethics, of time together. Because if you're both bagging products, you can sit there and talk about the day and all of that. It can be a fun time too. So I'd really like to challenge everybody listening to give this a try. You know, draw it out on a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be fancy. Print them off from the website and start plugging in your day in here and see where everything fits. So the next thing you need to do is develop what we'd like to talk about is an ideal week. Like, this is how things would go if everything went smoothly. Never happens, but let's hope that we'd be able to plan it. So Ron has a question.
Okay, everybody. We've got a question from Felicia for the group. There is always shipping, and with a one-person business, it's hard to set aside time to research and create new listings, the very stuff that enables us to grow. Do you set aside a separate day for research and writing purposes for listings?
Actually, I don't set aside a separate day, but I set aside a separate time. My UPS guy comes at the end of the day, so I want to have my stuff that arrived the day before. Like, it's now after 7 here and he hasn't been here yet, so he comes very late. So I get the shipments in late. So pretty much I'm useless like after 9 o'clock, so I'm not going to try to process then. So my routine is to be upstairs working about 8:15 at the latest. And that first work is processing all of the stuff that came in the day before. Get it boxed and ready to go, so it's sitting on my porch, hopefully by noon. So I don't have to worry about it, and I don't have to sit there and have the back of my head saying, I got to beat the UPS guy. I got to beat the UPS guy, because that's another place where I make mistakes. So ideal day for me, done by noon with the processing. Then I have the afternoon to do exactly what Felicia's asking: research, making new listings, fixing listings, that kind of stuff, where I don't have the pressure of an external deadline, meaning the UPS guy, sitting on me, and I have a pretty open block of time to do that. I try to schedule things where I have to leave the house either at lunchtime, so I've finished with that morning bunch of stuff, and I do Pilates class or whatever at lunchtime, or at the end of the day when my brain is fried at 4 or 5 o'clock and I can't think anymore. Then I'll try to schedule doctor's appointments and stuff late in the day. Not always ideal, but you can try for it. So you need, Felicia, you need to pick the time that works best for you in the context of, first of all, the shipping thing, because I think shipping in is the most important thing we can do in the short term. Because if it's sitting in our garage or sitting in our office or in our living room, it's just costing us money. It's not making us money. So once I get that stuff shipped in, then I move into the other things. You may work backwards from me. You may want to do the research and stuff first thing in the morning, because your UPS guy comes at noon, and then you'll have all afternoon to process the stuff that came in. Or if you have days where you know you won't have any shipments come in, then you can spread it out over the whole day, whatever works for your schedule. I see Felicia says she doesn't finish shipping all the stuff that came in a day. Well, then that's fine. Then I would say ship as much as you feel comfortable with. I'm always happy with shipping a box. Okay, I don't need to process all 8 boxes that came in all at once. If I can turn around a box and get it back out, that's progress. So it may be that you ship stuff that comes in on Monday. It takes you Tuesday and Wednesday to do it. And then you have nothing else coming in the rest of the week. And then you can set aside those days for research. One thing I found that's really helpful in planning that kind of thing is the UPS My Choice. They give you a way to manage your home deliveries, so you can tell what's coming in and what you can plan for the week. So like I know, like I have 4 shipments due today, so I won't get them all done tomorrow. So I totally understand where you're at. And to be honest, I'm not going to race to get more than 1 turned around tomorrow, because I have the weekend to do it then. And, you know, if I get in a rush, I make mistakes, you know, and that's not a good thing. So, yeah, Felicia, send a photo. And Sarah's saying maybe you need to hire someone to help you process if you have a big shipment day. Because I know some of your stuff is not huge, but it's big, and you have to do bundles and stuff like that. So, you know, maybe look into that for that one day. They may just be able to bag, you know, you put bundles together along your work table, and they help you by bagging. It is a time consuming, and bundles are very time consuming, but I know they've been successful for you, so I certainly wouldn't give them up. Part of this whole thing is knowing when your prime time is too. So let's plan our week based on what we know is coming in from our suppliers. You know, you can mark that in the calendar. When you sign up for the My Choice thing, they'll give you notices, and you'll get an email like the day before stuff, or you can go on the UPS website and they'll have a whole calendar for like several weeks out on what deliveries are expected on each day. So that'll help you plan that. I think that's one reason I've been able to be so efficient, is I know exactly when stuff is coming. It's not like a guess. So you plug in those days where you have product coming and when you're going to process it. And I don't think we should be processing, you know, like physically all day. That's hard on your body. Our job is not to have a business is not to do warehouse work. It's to do better than that. So give yourself maybe 4 hours in the morning or the afternoon, whichever works for you. And then block out some of that other time for the listings and fixing product pages and all that. What I've started doing that's helped a lot is I have a stack of Post-it notes by my desk. And then whenever I find something wrong, like I was processing stuff today, and one of my suppliers, I have a goal that I get 2 new SKUs from them every time I order from them. So one of them, the new SKUs it's a 4-ounce thing, and somebody had to put the weight as 1.5 pounds. So I know that Amazon won't be able to do a cubic scan on that until mine is in the warehouse. So I got my Post-it note and I wrote out cubic scan of SKU, blah, blah, blah. And I put one task on a Post-it note. So okay, if I have one, fix image on SKU XYZ, that's on another Post-it note. So as I'm working through the processing, I find everything that needs to be fixed gets its own separate Post-it notes. And then when I have a few free minutes, I can just grab one of those Post-it notes and work on that one thing. And then you can throw it away when it's done. And I find it even more satisfying than crossing things off a list. That one just really works for me as the whole Post-it note, fixing listings things. So the next thing you need to know is, when is your most productive time of day? Me, it's the morning. By noon, I'm really slowing down. By 4 o'clock, I'm done. I'm done. But for you, or I don't know, is Shelly here?
Yes,
Shelly's here. So Shelly is just getting going when I'm going to bed, because her most productive time is the middle of the night. She was a dealer in Vegas for many, many, many years. So her body clock is adapted to that. And she is, like, I think most effective, like 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. But you got to know yourself when it is. And here again, those of you with young children, I know your body clock is already messed up because of the babies and all that. But it's going to be harder for you. But as they get older, you'll be able to figure out when you are most productive. So, so Ron's getting a poll going here.
And so far, the overwhelming consensus is morning.
Yeah, and you wonder if we were all in a world where we didn't have outside things controlling our schedules, if it would be morning. Shelley's saying it's now 9 to 2, so 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. Linda's saying evening, Mary Jo's evening, and Sarah's after the kids are in bed. She says, but being pregnant is making nighttime more difficult because she's so sleepy. No kidding, Sarah. Gosh, you are probably in the most time crunched part of your life. I mean, really, I can't imagine. So, Ron, I think you tend to be a night person too.
Yeah, once I start getting going, I'm definitely get into gear, and I'm definitely a night person. And sometimes I find it hard to switch off, and I can find myself 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, I'm still going.
So here's the next thing that'll help you when you're working on a week: group similar activities together. That means if you are packing a certain kind of item, you may want to pack all of them at the same time, even though you're not sending them in. Bag them, label them, have them ready to go. Especially if your workflow is such that you have to set up a table to do stuff and all that, because that takes time. All that getting ready stuff takes time. So group similar things together. That's why I like my little Post-it note sheet, is because I can just grab a pile of those and just, sit down with the news on in the evening with my laptop, working and just going through those and getting them done. The next thing is, you got to be consistent in your planning, and not so much in your planning, but yeah, in how you do things. Consistency, people think, oh, it's like really boring. I don't want to be consistent. I want to be, this flit from here to there and all that. Nah, doesn't work. You got to develop a workflow, a consistency, a plan. Kids thrive on consistency. Pets thrive on consistency. Your business will thrive on being consistent. And that can be even extrapolated out to, it might be better to work an hour a day on your business than 7 hours in one day, because that consistency you'll see results as you get better and better at doing the tasks that you have to do. The workflow becomes easier and easier. And here's a big one. that people find really, really hard is routines. Having routines is a huge key to success, and it's so important. We're going to talk about it in another slide. But just remember, having routines for doing things. I mean, I could do a lot of the stuff I do with my eyes closed because it is so routine, and that's what you want to be, especially with the things that are kind of the grunt work of our business that we have to do, is make it a routine. Everything goes back in the same place. So when you come back to work again, it's the next, you have the tape in the right place, the pens in the right place. And I make it a habit of cleaning up my desk every evening. So when I come upstairs to work, it's the same routine. Everything's in the same place and I'm ready to go. So we've kind of mapped out an ideal week about what we're going to do. We take Sunday off. We're going to work Monday, Wednesday, Friday evenings because our partner, our husband, our wife is going to watch the kids so we can get some time done. Whatever your week is, plan it. So then you have to break it down and you have to plan your day. Okay, you got the whole big picture. Now it's breaking it down into smaller parts. And look at tactics 1 to 4 that we talked about when you start planning your day. Go back to your Eisenhower matrix. Plug in those things that have to be done today and when you're going to be done, get them done. I like to get the urgent stuff done first thing in the morning because then it's done and it starts that whole feeling of accomplishment that makes you feel more positive about doing stuff. I had to make an appointment at the vet's today to have the dog at daycare next week because I have an event. I did that the minute they opened, which was 8 a.m. Great, check that off. That feels good. That one's done. I can move on to more. Just getting stuff done takes that weight off your shoulders, out of your brain, so you can move on to more pressing, more important, more urgent things. Whether you plan your day the night before or first thing in the morning is up to you. If you're a morning person, you really need to do it the night before. So when you get up and after you've had your cup of coffee and you shower and you're ready to go, you know what to jump into right away. I have shipments coming today, so I know tomorrow morning, first thing is I'm going to be processing. But if you're an evening person, it may be best to plan your day that morning, because you won't be up and running until 2 in the afternoon or whatever, and you'll have time to plan it. But if you don't plan what's going to go on in your day is just going to be reactionary. You're going to be reacting to what happens. You're going to be doing that context switching where you move from one thing to another, and you never feel like you really get into anything and get it done. So plan it out. Paper is your friend. A calendar is your friend. And I schedule in blocks of time. Like for me, if it's a process day, it's that whole morning till noon is processing. So you may want to break it down into hours, even half hours, depending on if you've got, kids who nap, that, you can schedule their nap time. Whatever, but schedule it in blocks. People have even gotten down to like 15-minute blocks, but I find that's really hard to jump in and out of. So Ron's telling me we have a question.
Yeah, we have a question from Felicia. Felicia is saying, do you write down a daily to-do list? Do you print a calendar and write stuff on it? Great
question. Yes, and sort of. Yeah, I do a to-do list. And I write it on another Post-it note. And then my stack of Post-it notes are another part of the list. I use a calendar religiously, and we're talking about that a little bit later on when we talk about how technology can help it. Because I have a saying, if it's not in the calendar, it doesn't exist. Because how do you know what time you have to do things if those commitments aren't in the calendar? Whether it's drop off kids at school, and you can use calendars for recurring events, and we'll get into that a little more, but you got to have a calendar, and yes, you got to have a to-do list. I don't care how you write it out. I don't care how you use it. If you're still using a day timer, a file effects, that's fine as long as it works for you and as long as you use it. I love the electronic calendars because they sync on all my devices, and they sync with Ron's stuff, you know, so he can see what's on the schedule. So there's none of that, oh, I booked dinner out with friends. Oh, well, didn't you see that I had a business meeting that evening? No, that kind of doesn't happen when you use it. So yeah, you have to. Your brain can't hold all this stuff, and we're going to get into it in like 3 slides from now about why your brain can't hold it. But yeah, do it. So here's where the Post-it note thing comes in really handy. And I just realized there's a typo on this slide. Looks for small blocks of time between big projects. That means look for those small blocks. That means if you've done like a big shipment and it's noon and you're finished and you have to meet somebody or there's somebody's coming over to your house at 12:30. You got a half hour there where you don't want to start a big involved project, but you don't just want to sit there and play words with friends. That's where you grab that stack of Post-it notes that have simple little one task on them and do a couple of them, however many you can fit in that time. If you're sitting in the car waiting to pick up a kid from ballet, maybe you can grab a stack of these and get a lot of them done on your phone while you're sitting there waiting. Or you could bring your laptop and use your phone as a hotspot and do it that way, sitting in the car at ballet class. So look for those small ways you can get those niggling little things that drive you crazy, but get them done. The last thing is you've got to add your plan to your calendar. So as you decide that you're going to schedule these things, you have to put them in your calendar or they don't exist. And you will find that other things will come in and suddenly become more, quote, important when they really aren't, because they're the last thing that somebody's asked. So if you had all intentions for processing between 8 and noon, but you didn't put it in your calendar, and somebody asked you to bake cupcakes for the bake sale, and you say, oh yeah, I can do it because I don't have anything scheduled, all of a sudden your stuff doesn't get sent into Amazon. So put it in your calendar. I don't care what kind of calendar, put it in your calendar.
Okay, we have a question from Mary Jo. How do you handle it when your project or schedule gets derailed due to emergencies, phone calls, or other life situations?
The emergencies, well, you just have to deal with them. You know, somebody gets in an accident, you know, something gets hurt, the washing machine overflows. You have to reschedule it then. So say you're an hour into your 4-hour processing time and the washing machine overflows. That means you got to stop, you got to, you know, get the water turned off, you got to get the stuff out of there, you got to call a plumber, all that. And all of a sudden 3 hours have been taken up with that emergency. You then now have to put a 3-hour block somewhere else to make up for that time, because emergencies happen. You know, they just happen, but you then have to come back and redo them.
I have something to add regarding that point. And this is something that I've had to learn how to do myself. Being English, we're always terribly polite. I've had to learn how to say no to other people. And Shah's going to talk about that in the future. But yeah, it's sometimes I have to tell people, hey, I'm right in the middle of something. I will schedule you a time and I'll give you a call back.
And the phone call one, don't answer the phone. If the ringing phone bothers you, put it on Do Not Disturb. We still have a landline here just because we do. And it's kind of this emergency thing living in the middle of nowhere. But I have it forwarded to my cell phone. So I never have to run and pick up a landline. It forwards automatically. But I will very seldom answer a phone call just because I don't want that context switching where then you have to like, okay, get done with the call and get back to what you're doing. All of a sudden, the 5-minute call took you 15 minutes to get back on track. So voicemail is wonderful. And you'll find that 99% of those phone calls, you don't even need to answer them. You can just listen to the voicemail and be done. Another great thing about forwarding your landline to your cell phone, unless you have teenagers, is that you can start blocking a lot of calls, because that's a lot easier to do on your cell phone than it is on a landline. And then all of a sudden those won't even ring through. So the ringing phone does not mean you have to answer it, especially if you can, it's not somebody like a kid or a spouse or a boss or whatever. Just don't answer it. And you can deal with it then on your time instead of their time. The other life situations, a lot of them, try to schedule them. Whether it be doctor's appointments, you know, all that kind of stuff. If you have a child who has ballet practice, you know, every day from 5 to 6:30, put it in your electronic calendar as a recurring event. So it just carries all the way through. So you just have to look at your calendar and know that that time's blocked off because you're sitting in the car waiting because it's too far to drive home. So you sit in the car, you bring a stack of the Post-it note little tasks, and you get them done then. And you, even if you get 2 or 3 done, that's more than you got done playing words with friends. So here's the big one. This one is get stuff out of your head. Just because we can't remember it all, and that pressure of trying to remember means those brain cells are having to remember stuff instead of creatively thinking, like thinking about bundles, thinking about new suppliers. They're trying to remember your grocery list. You don't need to be doing that. So get whatever you can out of your head so you don't have to remember it. And I think Ron can vouch that I'm really good at this one, because he'll ask me a question. I said, I don't know. I wrote it down so I don't have to remember it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been training myself to get out of the habit of using Charlene as my personal whiteboard and using my iPhone and just making myself either, I like the Notes app, I like the reminders, and I certainly like the calendar.
There you go. So, so here's the thing. Open loops are what really can tie us down, and open loops are unfinished things. They just keep going round and round and round and round. And there is a psychological thing that really kills us if we don't finish things. And those of you who are knitters or quilters or crafters have heard of UFOs in the crafting world, unfinished objects. So we have, you know, 60,000 UFOs hanging around the house, meaning a scarf that's half knit and a scrapbook page that's half done. It's not really very satisfying. The satisfaction comes from the starting. That first bit of any project is really exciting. And then the middle is kind of the slog and the drudge. And then the finish is what then will motivate you to finish more stuff. So by getting stuff out of your head, then you don't have to remember it. So I really, really encourage you to create checklists, policies, and procedures, both for your business and for your family. My mom had them for us as kids. You know, if you don't do X, Y doesn't happen. You know, whether it be making your bed or doing the dishes or feeding the pig or whatever it was, it's just like, well, you didn't do that, so the reward at the end doesn't happen. Checklists are great, and procedures are an awesome way to build your business and make yourself more efficient. And Jennifer Simmers did a great podcast with us a few months ago about procedures in her business and how she uses them. And she is like my idol in this. She is far better than I am, having done them. And having talked with her on that podcast, I've started actually writing some procedures down as to when and why I will do certain things. And for my business, the first one is everything gets polybagged. That's a policy. The procedure is, how do you polybag it? My policy is everything gets polybagged before it goes into Amazon. So do that for your personal life and your business, and you'll find things are a lot easier, because then you know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. You don't have to reinvent the wheel with checklists, like packing checklists. When Ron and I went on this last trip to Bora Bora, I got really, really organized. And I made a packing checklist of everything we wanted to take. And then it was actually in a little notebook. It was paper, because paper was easier. Sometimes, this analog stuff is easier. And then each of those pages had a different kind of stuff. So there was like the diving gear. Okay. That was on a page. The t-shirts and shorts, what ones we wanted to take, that was on a page. And then like shoes, socks, and stuff was on a page. And then each page got put into a packing cube in the suitcase, labeled with like R1 for Ron's first cube, R2 for his second one, and C1, C2. So then we knew where everything was. And the great thing about it is I don't have to recreate the wheel for the trip next year, because we're going to take the exact same stuff and we got the exact lists, which is like pretty genius, I think. So do that in everything you can, so you don't have to recreate the wheel. If you have a child in a sport and they have a game every Friday, make a checklist that everything that goes in the bag that they take to the game or to the meet. So you don't have to recreate that list every Thursday night and hoping you didn't forget something. And whether it's on paper or technology is up to you, as long as you do it. So the whole thing about this is it has to be a habit. It has to be a habit that you use these systems, especially the calendar system. It is the only way I think that you as a business owner and a family member can get as much done as you want to get done. I mean, I come from the days when we carried around a day timer, those notebooks that you had, tabs for everything and color coding and all that stuff. Technology's made it a lot easier. We can have, everything in the world on our phone. So, so Ed is saying he tries to remember stuff, no notes, no calendar, etc. It doesn't always work so well. Yeah, Ed, and it's you're wasting those brain cells trying to remember it when you don't have to, when you can use them on far better things. So let's really, really, really try. Okay. And Felicia's saying she starts a list on her iPhone. It gets too long and unwieldy. Maybe for you, try the Post-it note thing with one task on each task on a separate Post-it note. So then it's not it's just like flipping through cards. You could use index cards too, or anything. And then you can just toss it when it's done, and you don't have to like scroll through this big long list. And if you really, really wanted to get like really fancy, you could color code your Post-it notes based on how long each thing will take. But then you become spending too much time on a system. So I just do them on whatever color came up in the pack of Post-it notes yet less. So pull your systems together so they become a habit. So that means one calendar. You don't have a business calendar and a personal calendar. You have one calendar. If you have a family, you have one calendar where you all share events. Your kids need, if the kids have their own phone, they need to have a calendar where they put their events in it. Because remember, if it's not in the calendar, it doesn't exist. So you're not there on Thursday night making stuff for a bake sale on Friday morning. If it's not in the calendar, it doesn't exist. And whatever calendar you choose, if you choose Outlook, or I use iCal because I'm an Apple Mac person, or Google Calendar, whatever you use it, and learn how to share events with those people in your lives that you need to share for. And one thing I think you'll notice is in a lot of webinar programs, podcasts and all that, there'll be links in there on that. All you have to do is click on those links and it will add it automatically to your calendar. You click on the iCal one or the Google Calendar, it'll automatically add it to your calendar in the correct time zone. So do it, use it. When you do it that way, the links to log into the show are all in there and you don't have to go searching for them. When the time comes, set an alarm for 15 minutes ahead, and then you can pull it up and log in and be ready to go. So Also, one to-do list. That means you don't have a business to-do list and a personal to-do list. You keep everything you got to do together, however you choose to do it. But don't separate your business life and your personal life, because it really isn't a separate life. It's the same life, and you have to shoehorn events from each part of your life into sections in your list and in your calendar. So, and here's the thing, I'm not going to tell you which ones to use. Use what works for you. If it's paper, that's great. If it's Google Calendar, that's great. If it's iCal, that's great. If your to-do list is on paper, fine. If it's on Post-its, fine. If it's in Evernote, fine. If it's in reminders, fine. But be consistent, and don't have a to-do list in your phone and a paper to-do list, because which one are you going to look at? Then you have to make decisions. You have to remember. So choose what works for you, but one of each, please. So delegating. Yeah, the hardest thing we have to do, isn't it? Because I'm not real good at this one. I like to tell people what to do, but then I get really controlling, so it's very hard, and it's not easy on the person I tell what to do either. So, so if you have employees or family, make sure you're using them effectively. Like, to be honest, when I asked Ron to do something, asking him to pack boxes for me would be stupid. Asking him to take photos for me would be using him effectively. So you got to choose how you use their time and what you ask them to do. You know, asking a 12-year-old to write listings for you, probably not the smartest idea, but a 12-year-old can certainly bag products for you. And they could probably do some pretty good shots for Instagram or Facebook or however you're promoting your projects. But just remember to use people where they are most effective, which means you have to learn their strengths and weaknesses. So where do they add the greatest value? For me, with Ron, it's taking the pictures. There's no question about it. For you, it may be Felicia, who has a time crunch in processing because she does a lot of bundles. Maybe finding somebody who just wants to put headphones on and listen to music and just bag stuff all day. That could be a huge value. So, as you're looking to delegate, I've made a conscious decision. I don't want an employee, meaning one that, you know, gets a 1099 and all that kind of stuff. I just don't want to deal with it. So I have VAs. They work through a service company, Karen Locker's Solutions for E-commerce, and they handle a certain part of my Amazon business. I have a bookkeeper and a CPA. They're professionals. They do that part of it. So I don't have to, because I can do far better finding products, new products to sell, and make more money in the time it would take me to do my books and do them maybe okay, but certainly not as good as my bookkeeper does, than I would paying the bookkeeper. So look at, can you make enough money in however many hours you spent? Say it took you 10 hours to do your quarterly books, and you figure you make $20 an hour finding products. So how much money would it cost to get a bookkeeper? You know, mine is not that expensive. So balance that out. Use yourself where you can make the most money for your business and outsource the other stuff. And that's hard to put a dollar value on ourselves, but I have done it. I've processed enough stuff. I have Inventory Lab to help me with numbers for this. And I have a dollar amount per box, profit amount, not just sales amount, but a profit amount per box that I want to hit. And I have a profit amount per hour I want to hit. And as you become more efficient, you can raise those, but use that as a benchmark and then see where that number can be turned around. So if you want to say, I make $100 an hour processing and sending stuff out, $100 profit. If you can hire somebody to free up an hour of your time for $50, well, you know, if time is tight, that you've doubled your money, you know, on it. So think about that. So you need to, when you're looking to hire somebody, you need to hire for very specific skill sets. Using Karen Locker's service. I see Felicia said she's doing it now and she's glad too, because it takes a big load off that stuff. And I have to admit, when we were going through that whole mess of the shipments with, you know, they were accusing us of not sending in the right amounts and all that, Karen's team actually got Amazon to admit they were wrong a couple times, because I know mine are right. I ship one box at a time. It's like, you know, if there's nothing left on the floor on the table, it's in the box. And she's been able to do that, and she just like frees up so much, just that hanging over my head that I have to do it because I hated to do it. So look for people's specific skill sets, you know, a CPA, a bookkeeper, a photographer, a cleaning person. You know, if you can hire a cleaning person for, say, 2 hours a week at $25 an hour, so you spend $50 on a cleaning person, but that saves you 4 or 5 hours that you can work on your business, you will probably make more money working on your business, and you'll have a clean house to boot. So win-win. So you need to leverage for skills you don't have or aren't the best use of your time, which is just what we were talking about. I can keep adequate books, but I don't keep, I mean, my numbers match, but I don't keep them in the detail that a trained bookkeeper does. So I don't have the skills. So, and it's not the best use of my time. The best use of my time is finding products, getting stuff into Amazon. And here's the thing, there's nothing wrong with saying you don't want to do something, right? My first thing was, I don't want to do my bookkeeping anymore. I just don't want to do it. I've never done my taxes. So that was an easy one. I've had the same CPA for like 37 years now, believe it or not, 37 years. And, but if you say you don't want to do something, you still have to find a way to get it done. You can say, well, I don't want to answer customer emails from Amazon. Well, fine, but you got to get it done. And you can hire people to do that too. I mean, you can hire people to do pretty much anything related to your business. The beauty about this business is they don't have to be in your office. They can work remotely, which is really, really great. I got the logo for my new Shopify store all online through 99 Designs. And the woman who won the contest and ended up doing it was in Italy. She was the designer for a big newspaper in Italy, and this was like her spare time gig. So that's the beauty of this business now, is you're not stuck with a designer in your hometown for whatever to get it done. So here's the big one that a lot of people will rebel against, but it's really good to be boring. It's good to have routines, because routines make you more efficient. They make you less prone to make mistakes. And if you look around, people who are really, really successful have routines. Just think of Steve Jobs and his Gap turtleneck and jeans and sneakers, or Zuckerberg's gray hoodie and sweatshirt or t-shirt. Then they don't think about what to wear today, right? It's all the same. So they eliminate you having to think and reinvent the wheel, because you have a routine. I have a routine on what I do every morning, and it's pretty much the same thing every morning, getting ready. And I know how long everything takes, so I can, you know, back up. And if I have to be somewhere at a certain time, I can pretty much tell you exactly when I have to get started doing things. Routines also, and this boring thing, they keep you from having to make choices. The whole "what do I wear today" choice, you know, there is a big movement towards what are called capsule wardrobes, meaning, you know, you have very limited choices. Maybe, you know, you wear black leggings or jeans, or, you know, a denim skirt, and you have the same top in 8 different colors. Then you don't have to make a lot of choices, which saves a lot of time. Routines help you be consistent. Routines, and the boring thing again, help you from keeping you from making mistakes. They mean you can be more efficient, so you can get more done, which is brilliant. So you got to have the systems in place. That's our calendar. That's our to-do list. That's the policies, procedures, all of that. There's a guy out there selling a procedure manual for Amazon sellers, and he wants like $5,000 for it. We can invent our own because every Amazon business is different, and his may be targeted towards a warehouse person. So write your own and you just save $5,000. That means you don't have to guess, right? If there's a policy and a procedure for doing things, you don't have to guess. This is the way it is. You made the decision somewhere along the line with your business to make that a policy, and then procedures to implement that policy. Stick with it. So the whole thing about being boring is saving your creativity for where it's needed and valued. And Felicia's creativity is in bundles. That's where she needs to spend her creativity time, is thinking up bundles, building bundles, contacting vendors about bundles, just thinking about bundles. Whatever it is that where your creativity is needed and valued, that's where you need to put it. You don't need to do it about picking what kind of jeans am I going to wear today. I have like 5 pairs of jeans and they're all the exact same size, same style, everything. But that way, if several in the wash, I have a clean pair, because then I don't have to think about it. I don't have to think, do these fit? Are these the tight ones? Whatever. So here's the one Ron was talking about earlier, number 9, learn to say no. Because you know what? It's like the most valuable word in your business repertoire. So a friend of mine she was president of a nonprofit organization, and I was the incoming president of this group. And she said this, and it has stuck with me 20 years later. What part of no don't you understand, the N or the O? Because it's a pretty simple word and it means a pretty simple thing. You don't have to be that blunt, but you kind of need to think about it like, yeah, you don't have to justify yourself when you say no. No, you don't owe anybody an explanation except maybe your spouse or your partner about why you choose to say no. And sometimes it could be just because. No, just because. So remember to say no to projects that don't fit your skill set or you have no desire to learn. For me, I had no desire to learn better bookkeeping skills, so I said no and I hired somebody. Saying no to stuff that you don't have to learn is hugely time saving. If you have to learn how to do something for somebody, you have to learn it and then you have to do it. So it's like twice as long, and the learning never goes as fast as you think it's going to go anyway. Here's a big one that I kind of learned the hard way. Be careful. This is aimed at moms and dads with kids especially. Be careful with volunteer work. When someone says, this is a great opportunity for you, or this is good exposure for your business, or some other line to make you think that giving up 4 hours of your time is really going to help your business. 99.9% of the time, it's not. Whether it's spending time, whether it's giving away products, because you'll get that a lot. The longer you're in business, the more people will say, well, can you just donate this to this auction? You know, if it has nothing to do with your interests, your desires, projects that you believe in, causes that you believe in, just say, no, sorry, I can't. You don't have to explain. No, sorry, I can't. And remember to say no to everybody when you just need to get away for a minute. Like you're overwhelmed, you just can't have one more thing said to you, or everything will fall out of your brain because you can't remember anything anymore. Say no when you need time. And that may be someone in Sarah's position with a young family and another one on the way. Maybe she needs to say once in a while to her husband, can you take the kids for an hour while I go sit in the bathtub? You know, then lock the door and just sit in the bathtub, or whatever it takes to recharge you. But if you don't say it to family and friends, you will be overwhelmed. And then they can decide on the Eisenhower matrix whether it's urgent, important, or not, that they get you out of the bathtub. But Mary Jo, brilliant. She says she had no desire to learn Photoshop for merch, and she said no to that and merch. There you go. And Sarah just said she did that tonight. Awesome. Yeah, I know enough about Photoshop to be dangerous, but I understand where you're at. I didn't want to learn anymore, so I've not moved forward with merch. Just that's because I didn't want to, you know? And I said, no, I'll do something else instead. So I'm learning Shopify now, which is a lot more fun for me. So the next thing and the last one is creating accountability. Like, how do you know if what you're doing to be more efficient, more on the ball, to get more done, to be happier and all that is really working? So who are you going to be accountable to? The first one is you. That means, you know, your accountability is self-discipline. So I'm very fortunate that I'm good at that, but I know I'm a rare person. So most people need some sort of outside accountability, whether it be a spouse, a partner, a friend. Because I've told Ellie on a couple of occasions via chat that, you know, you need him to hold me accountable for getting this done today, because it was like something I didn't really want to do, but I had to. So, you know, if someone's out there pushing you and helping you help you keep you in focus, and you will be embarrassed if you say to Ellie, no, I didn't get it done, I was too busy playing video games. You know, it can help. So whatever form of accountability works for you, remember, it's not one size fits all, and different ways of being accountable may work in different situations. So there's the one-to-one accountability, like I was talking about with Ellie. I've said, Ellie, I have to get this done today. Hold me accountable for it. That's the one-to-one. You could do it with a spouse, a partner, a friend, a business acquaintance, whatever. So there's the one-on-one. And then there's small group accountability, where you kind of put bigger things out there. I don't post in the group that I'm going to get this one project done today. That to me, that's more of a one-on-one thing. But if it works for you in small groups, then that's brilliant, because the one thing about our group, I have to say, is I can't remember a time when somebody's been critical of someone else's questions, problems. They've said, hold me accountable, and people have done it. We have the best group members. So small group accountability can be in the wholesale sourcing group, because it's a very safe place. It can be in a personal mastermind, whether you do it at a local meetup, or if you do it through email, chat, FaceTime, whatever. So you can find different ways of being accountable in different things. It may be with another child's parent, that you say, I need to be held accountable that I get this done, you know, a neighbor, whatever. Just do what it takes for you personally to make sure you get these things done. And then the other solution, or a adjunct to these things, is a professional coach or a mentor. Professional coach, based on the title professional, means they usually get paid for helping you. Mentors, in most cases, aren't paid, but they have sort of a vested interest in helping you grow. Choose something that fits you. Maybe you just feel stuck and you don't know what to do, and maybe it's worth an hour of a coach's time to like go through these problems and give you another look on things about how you're going to get it done. Because an outside eye can be really, really valuable. And then finally, you may want to think about a yearly checkup for you and your business. As you're putting policies and procedures in place, and you've developed checklists, and you're becoming more efficient, maybe you need a checkup. Maybe somebody needs to go over your numbers with you and the amount of time you're spending in your business, and seeing if things are where you really think they are. It's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength when you want somebody to help you with your business and help you grow it. So don't feel that you can. And it may be someone who is totally unrelated to your business that can help you see something that you can't, which is really, really important. So, so I think that's about it. Don't you, Ron?
I think we've covered everything.
Well, but we got one more thing. Speaking of which, we have some giveaways. And I don't have them. I should have taken a picture of them, but now that I say that, we have two giveaways. One is a Evernote t-shirt. You guys know Evernote is my favorite list keeping thing. And it is, for me, Evernote's evolved more into a place to keep things than to keep lists. So like I made plane reservations to go see my mom. So I just dump the PDF that Delta sends you in there. So just kind of everything gets dumped in there. I don't sort it. I don't put it in notebooks anymore. I spent a lot of time setting up all these notebooks, and now I just dump it into one notebook because you can search it really, really fast. So we have an Evernote t-shirt. So I want to know in the group if anybody right now uses Evernote with any sense of regularity. And no lying to me now because Ron's watching. So if you use Evernote, let me know and I'll send you a t-shirt. So I'll have Ron watch the chat for that.
No one so far.
No one so far. Felicia does, and Drama. Okay. Felicia got it first. So Felicia, I'll send you the t-shirt. Well, let me check. It's a size G for grande. It's in French for some reason. So will that fit you? Is that okay? Let me know, because I don't want to send it, not get it used. And then the Ron will watch for that. And then the next thing is a notebook and pen sole. And I say pen sole because it's a pen that actually looks like a pencil. Felicia, no, I think Felicia says she's a medium. No, I think it'll be fine for you because they're the like more fitted cut shirts, so perfect. So the notebook and pencil, it's a pen that looks like a pencil. It's pretty cool, and the notebook says crazy ideas on the front, so I kind of like that. And I'm going to do a little random thing, flipping. Okay, Ron's doing it.
Yeah, I have my random number generator, and I'm going to go off the order that I have in the participants window, and here we go.
Oh, and it's got a
little dice. It's number 5. Who is that? 1. Okay, Shelley, Deborah, Draymond, Judy Drabinski.
Okay, so Judy, if you could send me your snail mail address, I will send you this cute little notebook and pen. And I love these pen pencils because they look like the button you push looks like an eraser and everything. So I hope everybody learned a lot. I'm going to keep on you guys about the whole calendar note thing as we move along. And if you could also, Sarah wants homework. Okay, Sarah, your homework. Oh my gosh, I will give you homework. Do you have an electronic calendar that you're using now, or a calendar that you are consistent about using for you and your family? Okay, that's fine. A paper calendar is fine, but I want you to make sure that every time you have something to do, you write it in the calendar. Give it a date and a time. And let's start with that. So let's start with that. And those of you who use electronic calendars, let's start with you getting your electronic calendars set up with those in your family who you need to share things with. So for me, I share with Ron, and I actually share with Sally, who does our birthdays in the calendar. And that's just the one calendar called Wholesale Sourcing Birthdays is shared with her too. So that's your homework for this week. I'll have another one next week then if you guys really want homework. So get the whole calendar thing under control, however you choose to use it. If you have questions about the iCal, I can help you with that one. Google Calendar, you'll have to Google for help with that one because I don't use it. But really, it will change your life when you can say, if it's not in the calendar, it doesn't exist. Because that will have to be true as you get busier and busier and busier. So that's your homework. We'll have more homework next week. Judy, I need your,
Got it.
oh, Judy got it? Okay, great, Judy. And Felicia, I have yours. So I can send you the shirt and we'll be good to go. And I hope you guys like this new Zoom way to watch the show. It does give us the recording, which is really, really awesome, that you can watch anytime. And as I get better with all the controls and all that, we'll be able to do a lot more like live meetings with polls and question and answer, you know, all that kind of stuff. So Ed said it worked well. Well, thanks, Ed. I appreciate it. So you guys have a great evening. Get to work on your calendars, and I will be back in the group tomorrow morning. So have a great rest of the evening, everybody. Bye-bye.